everybody, welcome to Life Science Live. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about fall and the changing of the leaves. I feel like it's happened so quickly here in Provo, so hopefully everybody's getting the chance to go take a drive and go look at that. But we'll give people just a quick second to log on. As usual, if you're watching this not live, you can still feel free to comment, and I'll comment you back and answer your questions as they come in, or another educator may be doing so on their shift. So feel free to still be interactive and ask questions. And for those who are live with us, you're able to type in your questions, and if I can answer, I will, and if I want, I'll research it and get back to you in the comments as well. So again, we're talking about fall. We're going to talk a little bit about changing of the leaves. Okay, I think we're ready. There's a little bit of a glare on the board, so hopefully I'll be able to cover that up pretty well. But to get started, we need to ask a few questions. The first is, do all trees' leaves change color? Do all trees drop their leaves? How does that work? So we can start by with these distinctions between the two trees, the coniferous and the deciduous. We're going to talk about those two. So I kind of gave you a rough sketch of what these trees look like to me. So this one is our coniferous tree, and this one is our deciduous tree. Our coniferous trees are going to be in much higher elevation. Whenever we're saying like, oh, we're passing through the tree line, or we're about to go through the tree line, you can see where the trees stop on the mountain. Those are going to be coniferous trees, and so these could be our pine trees or our evergreen trees, these Christmas tree looking trees, okay? And they're often kind of conic in shape, and so that's one way that you can remember that it is a coniferous tree, is it kind of looks like a cone. And these are trees that do not drop their leaves. They do not. So coniferous trees do not drop their leaves. And you're saying to yourself, Sarah, a lot of them doesn't even look like they have leaves. And that's true. A lot of them have needles, and sometimes those needles do dry out and fall, but we're talking about in the fall time, are their leaves changing colors and having this cycle and falling? No. Our other tree is our deciduous tree. And so these are going to be found at much lower elevations, where the temperature is going to be much warmer. They have much different access to water. The plant structure is going to be situated in a way that they've adapted, and they kind of need greater access to water. And we'll talk about some of those adaptations at the close that help plants survive the winter. But one way to remember, your deciduous trees are going to decide to drop their leaves. So that's one way that you can remember the difference between the two. And so these might be the trees that are here on BYU campus, or maybe in your backyard. There's really big ones, for example, at Kiwanis Park, that have already changed color right here by campus, and their leaves are going to fall. Some are falling already, but these are deciduous trees. Whenever we talk about this with kids, I always love to ask them, where are these trees? Because sometimes they know what they look like, but they're not exactly sure where they are. So when we're thinking about coniferous, these are the trees that you might be skiing by at Sundance or up in Salt Lake. And deciduous trees might be down here in the tree streets in Provo or on the sidewalk. So these are our two trees. So deciduous, again, they decide to drop their leaves, and the coniferous are not. So let's talk about what is actually happening. I'll slide over. What is actually happening inside of the plant that is causing the leaves to change color? Let me shift myself just a little bit. You can see a little bit better. Okay. So inside of every plant, there is chlorophyll. And chlorophyll, we've got that written right here, is a really important part of the photosynthetic process. And so what that means is that inside of the leaves of a plant, these kind of act like solar panels for our plant, and they create energy. And so what plants do in the process of photosynthesis is they're converting light energy into energy that they can use in the form of sugar. And this takes place in the leaves. And so inside of these leaves is chlorophyll. And chlorophyll's main job inside of these leaves is to absorb light. And so when we talk about light on the light spectrum, every color that we see is actually the color that is reflected. So for example, chlorophyll can absorb all of the colors on the spectrum of the white light scale except for green. And that's why we see green, is because that is the color that it does not absorb but reflects back out. So that is how that works. Same thing with this whiteboard. It's not really absorbing any color of the light, which is also why it's so reflective, but we see white because it is reflecting that back out to us. So we kind of have to understand a little bit about the light spectrum for this. But So chlorophyll is green. That's because it is absorbing every single color except for that green. That is why plants are green, because there's so much chlorophyll inside of the plant. So when we're looking at cells, and this is my attempt to draw some plant cell walls, if you were to look at them at a lower magnification, it would kind of look like this. You would be able to see the structure of the cell wall in the plant, but it would kind of have these circles on it, and they would be green. And some of them might look like they're overlapping, and that's chlorophyll inside of our plant cell. In reality, they look a little bit more like this. They're kind of in stacks. These stacks are made up of individual grana. And again, that is what's going on, is just they are absorbing that light. So to keep it really, really simple, and we'll go into a little bit more depth, is what's going on is it's kind of like mixing paint. If you've ever taken two colors and mixed them on a piece of paper or mixed them on a plate, and you've seen how they've changed, for example, like blue and yellow is going to make green, that's basically what's going on inside of these plants. During the year, when photosynthetic processes are at an all-time high, water is good, sun is right, we're going to see that these leaves are going to be green, our plants are going to be green, and they're going to be standing up tall. Eventually, during the season, which is kind of right now in fall, it changes a little bit, and the photosynthesis process kind of stops a little bit. The trees are preparing for winter, and this is partly because there's different levels of sunlight due to the season. There's different levels of water as snow comes, and there's also a change in temperature. And so this is how the tree is reacting and preparing for that winter. So those photosynthetic processes kind of halt a little bit, and the chlorophyll actually breaks down inside of the leaf. Now, there are other pigments that are also absorbing light inside of a leaf. For example, red Anthocyanin Pigment, that's red, it says it in the name, or carotene, which is our oranges, okay? And so there's others as well that are also absorbing light at different rates. So what happens is, because the chlorophyll begins breaking down in response to kind of the trees going dormant in preparation for winter, that green is no longer the dominant color inside of kind of that mix inside of the leaf. And so as these green pigments become less of a factor and these reds and orange increase in terms of like percentages, they're going to become the more dominant color inside of the leaf, if that makes sense, okay? And so when we're looking at our leaves, that's kind of why they're not just one color automatically. They're kind of changing a little bit, and they're blending together. Sometimes they look kind of red-yellow, sometimes they're orange, and they change as well. Because as that chlorophyll is breaking down, that mix is going to change a little bit too. So it's really cool, you guys, really, really cool. Eventually, the red Anthocyanin pigment is going to be the most dominant pigment in most of these leaves, which is what we see. And another thing that's happening inside of the leaf, as this chlorophyll breaks down, we'll draw it right here, on a branch, let's have this be our leaf, cells are going to come in kind of right at the edge of where the stem meets the branch, and they kind of create a layer around where the stem meets the branch, and these cells sever the leaf from the branch. And as this happens, those cells have two jobs. Number one, it's to sever the stem from the branch, and number two, there will be a scar left on the branch, and they're helping bring proteins and to heal that part of the branch, which is kind of why when you look at a leaf that's fallen on the ground, it's really flat, that part on the stem where it had just fallen off. It's because they had literally been sliced by cells to let it fall off. And part of the reason why this is happening, the leaves are falling as an adaptation to conserve water. Now that sounds a little bit tricky because you're like, why would we want to drop our leaves to conserve water? Because we need that energy. And so again, one of the things that plants are doing in the winter in order to stay alive, particularly trees, is they're going to drop their leaves and they're going to be dormant. So they're not doing that photosynthetic process in abundance in the way that they were before. And so in dropping these leaves, part of that process is, in photosynthesis, we need light and we need water. And those are two things that are going to be really different in the winter. Both of those factors are what's causing these adaptations. How can we react to a difference in light? It's going to be a little darker, and how can we react to water, and then temperature. But anyways, what's going on here is there's a certain amount of evaporation of water that comes out of the leaves every single time that photosynthesis happens. And so in an effort to conserve some of that water, these large plants throw off their leaves, and they're part of the dormant process. So that is what's going on in terms of leaves falling and changing colors. Let me make sure that we don't have any questions coming in. There's a new format here. No, we look good. Okay, so let's talk about a few adaptations really quick that trees have that help them survive the winter. Because I've definitely thought this before. I grew up in California, so I didn't get to see fall really until I came to Utah. But I always kind of thought that too, like, are the trees, are they doing good? Are they alive in the winter? And they are. So some of the things that our trees do, looking at our coniferous trees, one of the ways that they conserve water is they don't really drop their leaves because their leaves are pine needles, right? And these needles are in a very interesting surface area. Because they're so thin and they're very sharp, they have a very decreased surface area, so there's not as much evaporation of water coming out as there would be as a leaf that's like this big, that's in Provo Canyon, right? They're like as big as the size of your hand. Another thing that's on these needles is there's often a waxy coating on the outside of that needle that is also going to help keep that water in and kind of limit the evaporation process. It makes them very, very tough. Very good. Another thing is that there's a few strategies for kind of plants. One is that they could be growing underneath the ground. We see this a lot kind of with people's gardens. Sometimes they have plants that will make it through all the way. They're annuals and they'll go all the way around. They might not have their flowers or whatever vegetable they might be, but they can live underneath the snow, and what they're doing is they kind of are able to insulate underneath the snow and just stay warm enough and catch enough water from any melt that might be happening or not. They are dormant as well, and they're able to do that. Another idea, another process they could do is to stay above the snow just enough that they're able to have enough access to water as it's snowing down. There are other trees and shrubs, particularly in the alpine region, that are really horizontal or they're really straight. So for example, the coniferous is a really good example of this because of the way that it is shaped. As snow falls down on a pine tree or on a Christmas tree looking plant on these conifers, the snow doesn't stay on the tree very much and completely cover it and block its light and hinder its access to water. The way that they're shaped, the snow is going to fall off and kind of drift down. So there's certain shapes of plants that are able to kind of shed their snow easier than others. And so these are a few strategies that they have. Another one that we see particularly in our desert plants, you have to remember here in Utah, we are mostly desert, but it is a cold desert. So it's affected by winter too, and it does get below freezing in our deserts, is in order to conserve water, many of our plants have shorter and more shallow roots. That way water doesn't need to percolate as far and get into those roots and be absorbed into the plant. But one unique thing about looking at our winter strategies and our desert plants is they exercise some of the same strategies. The only difference is many of our desert plants have the ability, like a cacti for example, to store water inside of it. If you were to slice it open, you would be able to see that. But as far as like using needles or shorter roots, we see some crossover for sure. But these are a few things about fall, a few things about the leaves changing color. Again, what's going on in short with that is chlorophyll is breaking down and the dynamic of dominant colors is changing and mixing in those leaves, giving us those colors, and this is a reaction again to sunlight and temperature. And plants have adapted to live in the winter, again based on sunlight and temperature, but also their access to water. So if any of you guys have questions about that, or you have a topic that you'd like to talk about next Friday, let me know so I can research it during the week and prepare something to share with you guys. And I'll see you guys very soon in the museum. Remember that the museum is opening at 2 on limited hours. Thank you.